Dobry večer. Good evening. Thank you for supporting the second annual gala of Help Us Help the Children, Nove Pokolinnya, New Generation. I'd like to, if everybody's kind of settled down, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the history and how this project started. 18 years ago, after having 3 of my own children, we decided to adopt a 4th child. And because our background was from Ukraine, we decided to travel to Ukraine and went to many, many orphanages and chose a child out of the orphanage. At the point when we saw her for the first time, she was 4 months old. After all the paperwork and the bureaucracy, and at that point, 18 years ago, there was no Canadian embassy. All the paperwork had to go through Moscow still. So we were here for a very long time before we adopted Olena. When we finally got to pick up Olena, I was horrified. In the 7 months that I had not seen her, she only weighed 7 kilograms at 11 months. And that enough was frightening. She was thinner, she looked almost like an anorexic. She had developed a chronic lung condition. She had developed, chronic diarrhea. She got rickets, and I actually got frightened. I actually had a moment of hesitation and doubt whether I should bring Olena home. Once the paperwork happened, took months, actually, it felt like years actually, in Kyiv. We brought her home, and the first stop was Hospital for Sick Children, where she stayed for about 10 days with a diagnosis of failure to thrive. After 3 or 4 months of pediatric care, going back and forth, Olena started to gain weight, she started to grow teeth, she started to grow hair, the rickets were under control, and the doctor turned around and looked at me and said, "This child, she won a lottery. What about all the other children that you saw in Ukraine?" At that point, it felt like someone had put a knife into my heart. And I realized that it didn't end at Olena. We gathered a lot of young professionals, and we started Help Us Help the Children. For the first few years, Help Us Help the Children was an organization that managed to find good sponsors, such as Eugene Melnick, Northland Power, Jim Temerty, the Canadian government, CETA pitched in, and we managed to this date, it's over $15 million worth of aid that we delivered to the orphanages. 17 years ago, the orphanages were horrific. They looked like the Romanian orphanages. There was not enough food, there was not enough clothes, there was no medication. And we did routes which traveled from north to south, east to west, usually 4 caravans. And some of the original volunteers are actually sitting at the table in the back. 17 years of volunteer work that happened, and these are some of the devout volunteers from Help Us Help the Children. Can you please stand up? Наші волонтери сімейці вікні. Сергію, Іване, Олексія, play still. Прошу встати. They have been with the project for 17 years. These are our Ukrainian lifeline. With time, we realized that Help Us Help the Children not only could do humanitarian aid work, but we really needed to do life skills with the children. And 15 years ago, we started camps. We have camps in the Carpathian Mountains, life skills camps every summer, and in winter we have ski camps where they learn tradition, the children learn traditions. So far, 15 years later, we're up to almost 10,000 children that have gone through our camps. 10,000, 500 a shot, basically. So you can imagine, 15 camps in summer, 5 winter camps. It's a lot of camps and a lot of children. As the project grew, we also found out that that still wasn't enough. And we developed an anti-trafficking program. We developed an AIDS awareness program and a scholarship program. And actually, I think if they're in the room or they're volunteering outside, we have 4 of our students that are on our programs that finished the orphanages and have gone to secondary education, to universities, and I think they're here. Angela, Sasha Robinson. Де є наші діти? То вже не діти, то вже студенти. Angela. Ви за вами, будь ласка. Oh, yeah. So there are a lot of successes. I'd like to share two little stories from camp. And I think this is really important because it talks about the miracle of children, the miracle of the things that happen at our Help Us Help the Children camps. About 7 years ago, again, we have at camp 4 different bases or 4 different sites. Because 500 children, you can't have them all in one spot. And every year, between the life skills, we also teach tradition. One year, we were trying to teach a lot of the kids what Easter is all about in Ukraine. So they all made baskets. We all learned all the different Easter songs. And we convinced the priest, although it was August, to do an Easter celebration in church. And all the kids got dressed in embroidery shirts, put their baskets together, their painted eggs that they did the Easter eggs, and everybody went to church. All 500 children were at church in our Help Us Help the Children t-shirts. And there's a child that was standing beside one of our volunteers from Canada. And the child starts kind of hitting our volunteer. And the volunteer says, "Не тепер, нема чого. Not now, no, it's church time." And she goes, "No, I have to. I see my sister. I haven't seen her for 6 years. We got split up and all my searches were futile. And I see my sister. One sister was at one camp. Another sister was at the other camp. And this was a miracle because the older sister, who was 18 at the time, had been searching for her sister for 5 years. And at camp in summer, they reunited. That was one of the little miracles." Ваші обласки. There was one other example. I could go on all night, but I will give you one more example. In Suropinsk, it's an orphanage for physically disabled children. We had one little boy that had no arms and no legs. Great at the computer, came to our camp because we have a lot of physically disabled children that come to camp. And in the year 2000, we decided to do a time capsule. And in the time capsule, we asked all the children to write their wishes, their dreams. And this child wrote a wish. "I would like to be reunited with my mother and my father. I need my family." We kind of covered the time capsule. I dug it up later because I didn't want it to rot in the ground, but because in 2005 we were supposed to dig it up. When we dug it up in 2005, this child was now a volunteer teaching other children the computer. But the miracle that happened was about 2 months before camp, he reunited with his mother. He found his mother we had sent him for an operation for prosthetics. And somehow he found out which village he was from and wrote letters to everybody in that village. One of those letters so happened to fall into the hands of his grandmother, his biological grandmother. Of course, the mother, it took her a while to get used to the fact because they had told her that he had died at childbirth because they had taken him away because he had no arms, no legs. After the initial shock wore off, she adopted her child back at the age of 18. So miracles do happen, and sometimes wishes do come true. I would like to thank everybody, Your Excellencies, Ambassador Caron. Thank you for all your support all these years. The Canadian Embassy, the Canadian government have been great. They've been behind us all the way, and we promise that we will continue to do you proud. Thank you.